Over the years, I've had an opportunity through the podcast and through these video interviews to chat with a lot of people, and I have a lot of favorites, but this gentleman deserves special recognition. As I told him yesterday, anytime I've needed him to come on as a guest, he's been so generous and gracious with his time. And what I really like about him is I can just ask the question and get the heck out of his way, and he shares his great knowledge and expertise. And David, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I do these interviews live. I don't use Zoom or Skype or anything like that because I'm behind a computer all the time anyway, so I like to get out and see the people face to face. But you're the only guest that I've done an interview with you at a conference such as this. Usually we're in a meeting room sometime or a press room or a break room, and there's other tables, other people around. And so we've done our thing. And I thank David, he takes off and I'm packing up. And I've actually had people come up to me and say, yeah, I was listening to that. Yeah, that was interesting. That was good.
Oh, nice,
so instant feedback.
Oh,
So yeah.
That's so kind. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, that's great. He's the VP of Web Strategy at WP Engine. David Vogelpohl. Hey, David, great to see you.
Thank you. I'm actually the VP of Growth now since
VP.
we last met. I was
Okay.
VP of Web Strategy.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it
we
has.
talked
It has.
about
The
that.
pandemic, interrupted everything, but so glad to be back here at a WordCamp in the WordCamp US.
Great to see you again.
Yeah.
How have you enjoyed WordCamp US so far?
I really have enjoyed it. I mean, this has gone to any conferences at all since the start of the pandemic. I've done some business travel and done some company-oriented things, but not seen so many people from across the community. And so I think it's a little surreal, but it's so amazing to see so many familiar faces and just get to meet new people again. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The content, the people here have been just outstanding.
It's been awesome. Now, it's been, to show how long it's been, the last time we talked, I think Gutenberg had just been released or had not been out very long, and we weren't sure how things were going. Now that it's been out for a few years, what's your overall impression of Gutenberg, and what do you like about it? Or not
Well,
that much?
I think, when it first came out, like anything, there wasn't a lot of tools around it. There weren't a lot of support, documentation, tools to kind of get you up and going. And I think the block world has changed a lot since you and I spoke. There's wonderful tools in the core project. There's wonderful tools like ACF blocks, Genesis blocks that allow you to create custom blocks without necessarily having to learn the React that goes along with it. So the ability to customize blocks and create new blocks is easier than ever, and I think that people are finally starting to adopt it and use it in their builds. It's helpful, of course, for the non-technical site creator, but it's also helpful for the technical site creator because it puts more of that customization power in the content creator's hands, which means less dev tickets. So it just takes people a while to adopt new technology. One, they want to kind of let it settle in, if you will, and then secondly, they need to start identifying the opportunities and take advantage of it. And then the other huge development we've had since you and I last spoke was the introduction of FSE themes, so full site editing themes, which has created a new way of theming that allows also for less code-oriented customizations, but still leaves the door open for code-oriented customizations to take it to that next level. And so all of this is really interesting to me because it feels like what made WordPress special in 43% of the web was the way it provided value for both content creators and developers. And so this to me is strengthening the content creator side, but it's also enabling the customization on the developer side to be able to do the things that the site needs to do and the user needs to do in order to drive growth or value in the website that they're operating. So,
Awesome.
yeah, that's how I think about it. Yeah.
See, you just
See, yeah,
you
you
just
just, like,
answered my next five questions.
Yeah,
You
answer
just-
one
you
Gutenberg
just
question,
answered.
you got a lot.
What about WordPress overall these days? What are some of the things you really like and you think they've done really well? And maybe what are a couple things maybe you think they need a little more work on?
I think, over the years, watching WordPress's security practices evolve, and I think the WordPress security team and the efforts behind making sure not just WordPress is secure, but the ecosystem has that culture of security. I think those have always been very, very strong, and I think over the last couple of years you can see that even more so than ever. And I think The community is also coming along. There's a lot of people who make independent plugins, independent themes, and of course individuals, freelancers, and agencies who manage sites, and hosts, of course, who manage some of the software layers around that. And it's really been nice to see the entire community come along. Acknowledging vulnerabilities in a plugin is a great thing. Patching them right away before they're public is, of course, key to that. And you see that happening over and over and over again. And those security practices, it's just been really great to see that kind of be a cultural thing that is now emanating throughout the community. So that's, I think, on WordPress. And then what was your other half of that question?
Maybe some of the things they
could improve, yeah. I think as the platform evolves, there's things that are introduced that change things. And as people think about adopting new ways, like building blocks or building FSE themes, there's a rush to adopt because it helps for testing and identifying how to improve the efforts. But then, of course, people are kind of set in their ways of doing things. And so I think, it's really this permanent tension in open source software projects where test, we want it to be hardened first, test. And so I think, as the community and the WordPress core contributors and so on and so forth think about engaging with the community, I think, leaning into that and trying to find paths that make it easier for folks to adopt, make it easier for them to see the business value and the value to their organization, and then connecting that to trying that technology. Because if you can build pages without blocks today and you can do it tomorrow, you kind of need that extra push there. Right. And I think that'll always be present, but that will ultimately lead to a stronger community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, David, one area that's I'm not too familiar with, I'm not an expert in, is the Headless Wordpress platform.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe go over some of the advantages and disadvantages with the Headless WordPress?
Sure. So Headless WordPress is effectively using a decoupled architecture where the content engine or layer, if you will, where the content creator enters the content is decoupled from how the front end of the website is rendered. And headless or decoupled JavaScript architecture, it's usually the front end is rendered by a JavaScript framework. So the most familiar framework in terms of file structure that a WordPress developer might want to try, for example, is Next.js. And so effectively what you do is you take the content from WordPress, and of course you inherit the backend, the user management, the ability to create custom posts and custom fields. People are even using Gutenberg blocks in headless configurations. But that data is effectively entered, configured, and stored on WordPress and then rendered through the JavaScript layer. Now, our JavaScript framework. Now you might be thinking but why? Who cares? One of the key benefits is scale. So you're able to scale in a decoupled configuration at a much greater rate. You can also have faster performance. There are trade-offs though, like you have to learn JavaScript and you may not know JavaScript, so that's a big one. But there's some familiar paths. At WP Engine, we provide a free sandbox account for people to get going. It has blueprints and the environment is automatically configured and you spin it up. But you also then have blueprints for I want to build a headless brochure site, or I want to build this kind of site or that kind of site. And there are these starting points. And so it is early days with decoupled architecture. And we believe, and it's really, I feel, showing true, that WordPress is really well positioned for this. One of the bigger proprietary platform players in this space for the CMS behind headless builds is a company called Contentful, and they have a wonderful solution. But it doesn't have the depth of content creator experience that WordPress has. So the front end that renders, and people have different opinions on what you should do and why, but there's security benefits, there's scale and speed benefits with decoupled architecture, and there's also integration benefits. And so effectively the data and content on the back end talks to the front end via API, and that's fundamentally how it delivers. And I think that's one of the great testaments of WordPress, is that it is such a flexible engine for developers and content creators that when whole paradigms in web development start to change, it can be used to take advantage of it. So I'm really excited about Headless. It is really cool. I think the trick in the next 5 years is going to be preserving that content creator experience, because decoupled architecture is already optimized for the developer experience. So I think marrying those two, that's what made WordPress 43% of the web. And Headless still needs to do that part. But there's some people making some wonderful gains there, and we'll definitely see more around it.
Great, awesome. Hey, thank you for
that.
Yeah. Now let's talk about WP Engine these days. Is there an area that WP Engine is focusing on more than the other, whether it's e-commerce or small business agencies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly those are our bread and butter customers, if you will. WooCommerce is the largest e-commerce platform on earth, and we've always had a very high number of WooCommerce stores on our platform. Starting in 2021, we developed an e-commerce specific hosting option. It comes with integrated search, so WordPress search can slow your store down. It doesn't provide super high levels of customization, and so we use a service called Elastic Press that comes with our e-commerce offering, along with a bunch of other build tools we added in the beginning. Starting in 2022, though, our offering has customized caching for WooCommerce that can make up to 90% more of WooCommerce pages cacheable. And so this allows you to scale, but it also allows you more speed in the moment to convert. And then we just introduced a feature that addresses the cart fragment issue, which can cause trouble for your store when your store scales. So if you get a lot of shoppers at once, it can basically not allow your shoppers to use the cart experience. And so these are some of the areas we've been investing in there. And then on the small agency side, we just released Grow Suite to WP Engine, which is an agency client billing and site management platform. So you can do custom reports, recurring billing for maintenance and care plans, and then you can couple hosting along with it, or not. You can just have just a maintenance and care plan that bills the client. So those are some of the things we're working on.
Cool. Now I know WP Engine has also a number of companies under its umbrella, and one of them is Flywheel Hosting, and they're still operating, I believe, as a separate company.
I think they're officially under, I think it is part of WP Engine on the company structure side, but I don't know for sure, so I guess I can follow up with you on that one.
Kind of together.
But they are part of the universe. But
absolutely. Now, they're also an excellent managed WordPress host that we've reviewed on the website. Now, David, some people might wonder, between WP Engine and Flywheel, what's the difference? Is there a situation where one would be a better choice than the other? What would you tell people?
Yeah, it is really interesting. So first off, the pricing parity is about the same. So we purposely did that, not to provide people with hard choices as they thought about solutions in our universe. There are a lot of similarities between the two offerings. Like if you look at the back-end portal and you think about the key functionality, a lot of it is actually quite similar. So in those ways, you can also think about like the look and feel and how you might like the one portal or another, but the functionality is actually very similar. If you look at the infrastructure side, the WP Engine side has a new part of our platform called Evolve that we're bringing more and more of our customers onto, and it's a container-based architecture. The Flywheel platform is a container-based architecture already, and so our legacy platform is effectively moving to the Evolve, and that Evolve is available to all customers. So sometimes that can be important to you, but of course the WP Engine platform scales quite well without the container-sized architecture. We have very, very large clients. So, I think as people think about the differences and like which one would I want versus the other, there's a lot of similarities, and I think the Grow Suite offering is an interesting example. Like we've been bringing parity to both sides for a long time. Grow Suite is a good example. That was only available on the Flywheel platform, and now we've brought that into the WP Engine platform. So that didn't really help my answer on that one, but the other thing is both have money-back guarantees, so you can try them both out and then choose the one you think is best. But so I haven't done like a full like side-by-side like internal competitor analysis, but both are amazing offerings, and the people behind them are incredible. I was part of the due diligence team looking into Flywheel before the acquisition, and the parallels between our culture, between our traditions, Our commitment to the work we do and our customers was just really over the top. And I mean, since the acquisition, that's really shown through my coworkers in Omaha that work primarily around the Flywheel offering, and the remote folks that also focus on it are just incredibly driven and incredibly customer inspired. And so, it's like asking someone like, who's your favorite child? I'm like, I don't know, they're both great. But yeah, I really, really love the Flywheel stuff.
Okay. David, let me ask you this question. This is sort of not WP Engine specific or even managed WordPress hosting specific, but I know a long time ago we talked about the differences between WordPress and the website builders like Wix and Squarespace. Yeah. Do you think, as someone who's been in the hosting industry for a lot of years, do you think that the hosting industry as a whole, I guess I'm speaking more about general cPanel shared hosting companies, but again, you've been in a hosting industry. Sure. Do you think the hosting industry has done a good job in, how should I say, promoting the advantages over their plans over Wix as far as the benefits that we've talked about? Because to me, it doesn't always seem that way. It seems like some companies are kind of stuck in their old ways and just, here's our stuff.
Well, it's interesting. WP Engine is a managed WordPress hosting provider, and our starting plan is around $30 a month. Now, when people are building a site from scratch, and they're doing it on their own, and they're a non-technical person, there's a lot of barriers with WordPress. Like, yes, it comes automatically installed when you get on your host. But of course now you need a theme, you need plugin, you probably need plugins, you need demo content. There's a lot of steps that you have to do. And so what we've seen in the industry is that hosts that offer lower starting pricing points, like lower priced hosts, really lean into that kind of guided experience. And we've done that as well on WP Engine. But our, quote, bread and butter customer isn't necessarily like a novice making their first site. They're trying that out on other hosts. Now, the interesting dynamic when we look at the rise of no-code solutions, Wix, and there's a variety of others, of course, and they've been around for a long time. I think my GeoCity site is now gone, I think, but there's always been this like no-code approach. But even for my agency days, I remember this being very prominent, which was, people would start the site on their own, and then it would grow to a level where they wanted to invest in it, or where they needed to make it better for SEO, or they wanted to do a design. And what they found was that it was difficult to do that customization with the freelancers and agencies and professionals they were hiring. And really it gets down to customization and trying to be different than your competitors. And so as more and more people start their journey in building and optimizing their website on no-code solutions, the eventual path there is to a customization solution. And WordPress has actually been really good at this. Even though a Wix is easier to get going than WordPress out of the box, it definitely is without complementary like setup wizards and things. But those setup wizards do provide a meaningful starting point. But if I start on a proprietary closed source system where I'm basically like renting my website, when it comes time to customize, I now have to do a full CMS migration. I might have to do complicated redirects to account for prior links and prior linking structures, and it takes a redesign project from a new theme and some new layouts to like my whole website change, and I have to like rip out all of the guts and then put all the guts together again in this other system. So I think from the freelancer and agency community, the rise of no-code site building is probably a mixed blessing, because like there's less of those lower end people like relying on them, but there's more work when it's time to actually go customize it. So it's kind of a trade-off, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. In the end, customization wins, and so I think we haven't necessarily seen a strong showing of that from the proprietary closed source solutions. I mean, even things like Shopify, in order to really truly customize Shopify, you need to either use the API for a headless build, which again requires advanced technical knowledge and has a limited number of people that know it and you can hire around it, especially as a small business. You can use the Ruby on Rails framework with it for other further customizations, but Ruby on Rails developers are really hard to find. Freelancers and agencies are really hard to find, and so as a small business you kind of get locked in, but then like when it's time to move, it's this very painful process off. WordPress being an open platform allows you that fluidity to be the non-technical site creator and operator. And then when it's time to customize, there's just tons and tons and tons of PHP developers and WordPress developers that can dive in and do that customization without ripping up your whole website.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, just to wrap up here, let me ask you the obligatory question about the future. Where do you see WordPress in the next 5 years?
I think that WordPress's strengths, what got it to be 43% of the internet, is the way that it marries the developer and content creator experience. And I think if you look at the releases in WordPress, they've been focused around the content creator experience. If you think, though, about how people build sites, they tend to spend their time on the front end and not the back end. And WordPress itself has been focusing on the back end, but still leaving that core principle of openness and customization through code. So in my mind, this trend is really strengthening the developer experience because it puts more power into the content creator's hands, power that the developer can customize, power that the developer can augment, that can limit for the content creator so they don't do bad things, and that's wonderful. I remember when people were saying, oh, WordPress is going to turn into Wix. I don't think that's what it does at all. I think what the block editor does is it allows developers to create custom Wixes to work their way for the businesses they're optimizing for, and that's an incredible amount of power. And I think there's a lot of smart thinking to think like, okay, this is where we should be focusing our efforts in core, and it's been an area that languished for a long time. The back end of WordPress really didn't change for 15 years until we had the block editor. It really had a meaningful change. So.
Gotcha. Well, again, it's great to see you. I appreciate your time as always, and appreciate your help all through the years, and continued success to you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
It's David Vogelpohl, everybody, from WordCamp US 2022.